Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a very special presentation and conversation around Borderlands 3. My name is Tina. Anyone excited about Borderlands 3? Awesome, glad to hear it. I'm joined by this wonderful panel of Gearbox developers. We have Kayla and Randy and Paul. Thank you guys for joining us. Can you guys just talk briefly about what you guys do on the game?
Sure. I am a producer on the content creation pipeline.
Hi, I'm a narrative producer. I run the story group for Gearbox.
My name is Paul Sage, and I'm a creative director, and just basically show up to work and say, hey.
Right.
Good job to be in. So we are here to talk about Borderlands 3, and we just saw that amazing new E3 2019 trailer, and we will have some gameplay demo for you guys later. But you had another kind of surprise announcement, some Borderlands 2 DLC featuring Commander Lilith. What's that all about?
That's right, Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary. If you guys haven't heard already, if you own the Handsome Collection, it is free for you. It is Borderlands 2 DLC 5.
Out now.
Out right now, yeah. It was available, I think, just the day before last, right? And so a brand new DLC that helps bridge the gap between Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3. So if you're a Borderlands 2 fan and want to get familiar with what's going on, and remember what's going on in the universe, what's happening with Lilith, what's happening with the Vault Key, what's happening with your favorite characters. A really cool story-based DLC that's going to take you through that and set you up and get you ready for Borderlands 3.
Such a good opportunity to replay Borderlands 2. Not that we needed a reason to, but how about we check out that trailer too?
Awesome.
This is Lilith. Sanctuary is under attack. All civilians evacuate the city immediately.
Hello, old friend. Been a while, hasn't it? I bet you're wondering what became of our Vault Hunters. After the death of Handsome Jack and the fall of Hyperion, the Crimson Raiders set their sights beyond the stars. Of course, sometimes when you're busy looking forward, you forget to watch your back.
Time to change the world.
Oh, crap!
This isn't over yet. Just tell me where to point this sumbitch!
So it really does set the stage for Borderlands 3. What's happening in the beginning of Borderlands 3 that this kind of segues into?
So at the very beginning of Borderlands 3, Commander Lilith, who's leading the Crimson Alliance right now, has basically tried to recruit new people into it because of a threat from a cult. It's a newly arisen cult, and it's led by cult leaders, Tyreen and Troy Calypso, who are kind of a cult of personality. They, I would say, represent both not only the cult, but also one of the little quirks that they have is they are kind of the worst of streamers, right? They're like, imagine streamers taken to the worst degree for anybody who's ever seen a little bit of an egocentric personality there.
Well, yeah, imagine if a streamer decided to take all of their influence and power and say, everybody go do this bad thing. You know, that's what we kind of explore with the Calypso twins in there. And for the first time ever, you found some personalities that are strong enough to actually rally all the bandit clans of Pandora together into this crazy, wild mix of people who really just want to do more than, you know, feast on strange meats in the wilds, but they want to, you know, be sure to stick it to the Vault Hunters, too.
They want to feast on sirens? What's going on there? There's a big siren focus in Borderlands 3, and we're making a lot of assumptions here, but, you know, no spoilers, but if there's anything to say there.
Well, I mean, we love sirens. You know, we have Lilith in Borderlands 1, we had Maya in Borderlands 2, and there's a lot more surprises there. So Lilith is definitely there front and center in the beginning. We've seen a little bit of Maya in the trailers already. We won't talk about all of that. But there's some more. Like if you like sirens, if you like getting into that kind of mystical magic usering of the, the kind of the sci-fi Borderlands universe, this story's got a lot of sirens in it.
This one's for us siren lovers.
Yeah, we're going to dig into it. So.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be looking at a new character class in Borderlands 3 as well as a new planet. So who's Mose? What kind of a character class is she, and what kind of play style would people gravitate towards with her?
I think of Mose as the every person soldier character, but she's got this big Iron Bear mech that she can call down at any time. And
so cool.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Mose is she has action skills that we call hard points, which are her guns that she can put on it. So there's a flamethrower, there's a minigun, there's a grenade launcher, there's a rocket launcher. And again, it's one of those ways that Mose is really cool, and hopefully all of our characters, where if you are two people who are playing the same character, like you both said, hey, I want to play Mose, Kayla, if you wanted to play Mose, you'd probably play a completely different Mose than I would.
Depends on how you spend those stats.
That is definitely true, yeah.
Awesome. Well, instead of just talking about her, how about we talk about her and view a little bit of gameplay?
Oh, cool. Sure.
All right, so we're opening up on this new planet, Eden 6. What is Eden 6?
It's a really different sort of biome than we've really ever showed in a Borderlands game before. We've taken you out of the desert and, if you were at the gameplay reveal, out of the city and into a biome that's actually a little bit inspired by Louisiana swamps. So you're going to see a lot of lush environments, some gorgeous trees down in that skybox, and you can see the gas giant in there, and just a whole lot of different, and you can see it's more wood-based, and you get those shacks and stuff like that. So it's really cool. We also will feature new creatures in this biome as well.
Yeah, a lot of different new designs. But we're also seeing a lot of environmental effects. I know that you can set, there'll be oil barrels and you can kind of set them on fire with fire-based weaponry, like we saw a little bit of there. What can you talk about environmental effects and the new elements?
Right, so we've kind of littered the environment with different ways to kill your enemies. I mean, obviously guns, grenades, and all those have played a huge part. But one of the things that we thought was going to be cool was, hey, look, if there's water there and you have a shotgun, why can't you just electrify the water and, electrify that enemy? There are pipes all over the place that can shoot down oil, and you can light that oil on fire. So there's, just any way you can think of to kill the enemy, and, whether it be through your own guns or through the reactive environment was a goal of us right away.
And I believe we were just showing off that she has homing grenades. Is that what that looks like?
Yeah, that is the rocket pods, and, you can sweep on multiple targets, so you can pick, sorry, I do sound effects on my,
Makes it more entertaining.
Yeah, so you have multiple targets, or you can use all the rockets on one target. So it's, it's really a fun skill to use.
And what about the guns that she's using? I know that we're swapping around a little bit. This is an Atlas gun right here.
Oh, that's
and it's
a cool one. Yeah.
She's using smart bullets. So
yes.
they're targeting the enemy specifically?
That's right. We introduced a gun mode switch for a lot of our different manufacturers. In Atlas in particular, if you switch modes, you can fire out homing darts or, basically a homing grenade. That if that hits the enemy, then all of your shots go to that enemy, so they can go around,
fire straight up into the air and watch your shots curve back around. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's just showing off, Randy.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. It's like the Fifth Element gun, right?
It is for people who might have bad aim, like me. I don't know.
You're pretty good. I've watched you play.
I do okay.
Any of the other guns stand out for any particular reason that we're just seeing right here?
Oh boy, can we just go into all sorts of guns?
Is
this a doll you've got right now?
Yeah, that's probably a doll.
I love this because this really shows off the cool thing about the firing mode switch, right? Like in Borderlands 2, dolls were pretty cool, but you were always limited to burst fire on the dolls. And while they were kind of that modern military promise, they were always stuck there. Well, here in 3, dolls actually can alternate firing mode into a lot of different types of firing modes. So some of them go full auto, some of them go semi-auto. So if you're a burst fire person, great, you're always going to find that in dolls, but you have other options too. So if you really like that precision kind of tight military experience and want that, dolls, I think, are a lot more useful than they were in 2 and are going to be a lot more viable to play styles.
And just to go a little bit into this, I think that one of the cool things is like Jimmy Barnett and some of the art team, the parts that they have. And, we don't talk about it very much. You want to talk about like the parts and how they work to fit them together?
Sure. We made every effort for the guns to be the most unique and to give that over 1 billion number. So each weapon type.
That's a real number, by the over 1 billion. Is
Over
a
a
real
billion,
number,
yeah. So each weapon type and each manufacturer have different parts that swap out in between to give all of the different models. So things like your stocks, your magazines, and your sights will all be different on the different types of weapons as they drop, and it's all part of a random drop system. And they spent a lot of time making sure that each one of those looked really nice with one another. And all of that stuff carries through with the rarity as well. So a rarer gun, each one of those parts will be associated with a different augment or reaction type, and as you go through the rarities, they get better. And that even holds true for the weapon skins. So if you apply a global weapon skin to a common weapon, it won't look as good, it won't be as bright and shiny, but if you put that on a legendary, it's gonna look real cool.
Yeah, and just the ability to get like every one of those parts, like you have the stock, you have the trigger, and so if there are 50 stocks, every one of those has to fit on that manufacturer's gun to make sure all those things match together. So just because those have parts and stats, I mean, to me, that's almost the easy part versus, you know, the actual modeling that has to be done to get those things to just work together seamlessly like that when we piece a gun together.
And even just looking in your inventory, as we were doing earlier when we scored a bunch of loot, there seems like there are a lot of quality of life improvements. You can see the gun comparisons, just to look at the stats at a really brief glance. Can you speak more on just more of those quality of life improvements?
Yeah, in fact, one of the things you called out, like doing a comparison, we have gun score now that we added, you know, for those people who just want a quick at a glance, like, okay, this looks cool, I'll take this, I'll put it in my inventory, you know, for later. That's certainly how I play if I'm in the midst of something.
I mean, in Borderlands 2, I used to do that by cost of the weapon. You know, if you couldn't, like, I'm not sure which of these stats are better, but that one's more expensive, so it's got to be better, right? But I like what you guys did with the gun score, because now you have a, you know, just kind of a general number that tells you, like, statistically, this one is probably better than that. But you know, I still don't think it's the end-all be-all. I think that there's so much fun still picking up two guns that are really close together and trying to figure out which one is good for you. You know, sometimes I like ones. I love like the TDORs. You know, you could throw and explode, or the guns with legs that you find in TDORs now.
Right.
But sometimes that's even more better even more better than me. I'm the word guy, right? Even better than just raw stats for me. Just the fun and the wildness of how you play and what you get to do in the game.
Yeah. And we quickly killed him, but there was an Easter egg character. Who was that? Who is El Dragon Jr.?
I will talk to that. So we do love our Easter eggs, you know, and all of that. So I was creative director on Battleborn. And El Dragon was one of our big luchador playable character in there. So what's really funny on that is, I don't know how many people remember, like one of the last sets of skins that we released for Battleborn were Borderlands skins, and we actually did a Psycho Bandit El Dragon. And this El Dragon Jr. here looks just like him to me. It's so funny. But yeah, a big guy that runs out of the woods and tries to clap you to death. I mean, it also kind of fits in the Borderlands universe.
And he's one of our rare spawns. So one of the things that
this is cool.
We're doing with rare spawns is, you know, rare spawn has, you know, roughly a 20% chance to spawn in your game. But if you see that spawn in your game, we dynamically create a mission for just somebody on your friends list to go in and kill that enemy. What we want to do is we want to encourage people to play with their friends, but we don't want to say, hey, this is the way you have to play. So it's these little soft encouragements we keep putting in the game all along to say, like, hey, there's a bigger community, go engage that if you want to.
And this is Hyde, who seems like maybe another reference, who might be making a transition in a moment. Spoilers?
Yeah, so I think this one is one of our challenges that, you know, we've talked about a little bit, but we've really tried to make sure we've added what we call a fog of discovery there to our mini map, right? And you know, if you're like me, I really like exploring every nook and cranny of games I play. And so this was really important for us to have a fog of discovery that points out every nook and cranny. But to make that interesting, we had to have things to put in the nooks and crannies. And one of them are these crew challenges. And this one is, I think this is a Zero crew challenge to go and assassinate certain enemies of Zeros. And there's a little bit more story behind why Zero's asking you to do it. And there's payoffs for doing that.
We sort of glossed over the fact that we're on Jacob's Manor.
Oh yeah. On Eden 6, we mentioned this a couple of times. We'll get to look at it today, but Eden is the ancestral home for the Jacobs Corporation. So one of the maps is the Jacobs estate. You're going to get to see their large mansion that all the Jacobs money. Thank you for buying all the guns for Jacobs. You've afforded a huge manor for them. You're going to get to explore that and maybe shoot holes in it. But Jacobs Corporation is there, and that what's going on. I won't give all the spoilers away today, but it's central to the story of what's going on with Eden 6. So there's some drama. Some family drama going on there that you're going to get to immerse yourself into and maybe help Jacob sort out what's going on with Eden 6.
And I imagine there'll be lots of Jacob's weaponry
There's
be
going to be
found.
some, yeah,
Yeah,
of
just a
course,
few.
of course.
Yeah.
Some special ones, perhaps?
Lots of special
There's-
Jacobs. Yeah. There's one of my favorite things about Jacobs is any Jacobs has a ricochet. So if you hit a
This
crit
is new.
and you hit that crit with that Jacobs, that'll actually go and ricochet to another enemy and do damage to other enemies. So Jacobs are actually a really fun gun to play with.
It's cool because, I mean, Jacobs before was known for like the really high power, single shot. If it takes more than one shot, it's not a Jacobs, right?
That was the worst Marcus you've done so far.
But, well, I won't do a Marcus here. I'm not
I'm
Bruce.
disappointed.
That's good. But it's really satisfying for those that like the crit shot game.
Yeah.
You now get that kind of iconic ricochet sound with the Jacobs, like there's sound effect.
There
right?
you
I
go.
do the
That's
sound
better.
effect.
Yeah.
But it's really satisfying because you really get to feel that loop of like I'm zooming in on crit shots and it's really cool. Yeah.
So I was curious, we were kind of like... One more
I'm
time.
just going to do that randomly now throughout the panel.
How does it go? This seems like another, well, there's two things going on here. What was that that we just popped open over there?
That's a good question. I think that was.
Was it a loot tink?
That might have been a loot tink. Yeah. So again, that's just you see the fountain spray out there. There's just tons of weapons. It's one of our things. A loot tink is really cool because if a loot tink's running around, you have to hit them before they dig themselves and bury themselves back in the ground, essentially. So there's a limited time on the loot tinks. One of the things I did notice there was some of the, one of the cool things about that area for me in particular is there's verticality in Eden 6. So that was I think it's Graham Timmons is our lead level designer, and Mike Davis is our lead level artist, and those guys work together, to create like just these awesome environments, I think. And that verticality was something that I know all the art team was really wanting to get into there.
Yeah, it's really exciting to be able to introduce that new level of movement suite and mantling that feels really good. It adds an extra layer to the experience, and the way that we can build levels is more dynamic and challenging. We can even put little missions and side areas that require some skills in mantling and doing those other things to get to some maybe special loot.
Really opens the world up.
Yeah.
And there was a ton that I'm sure we missed in that gameplay demo, but I feel like we hit some of the good points there. Now that we're sort of through all of the video footage that we have, I'm curious, it's been 7 years since the last mainstay chapter in Borderlands, and what has changed for you guys over that amount of time? What did you want to keep about the series, the heart of it that you wanted to retain, and versus what did you want to evolve?
Sure.
Oh, it's falling to me first. Okay, so
No pressure.
there you go. Yeah. So I think one of the big things just coming in was like really improving that core gameplay. We talked about movement a little bit, but making sure everything feels really fluid when you move. Make sure all of your gunplay feels really good right from the start. That was a big thing. It seems like, oh, well, that's obvious. You should do that. But that was part of modernizing it, which was something that was really important. Keeping things, there were so many things that you just want to keep. I think honestly, I think Borderlands has the best loot loop in gaming, honestly. Yeah. And it's something that we had to really double down on and make sure that we were true to the series in that way. I think it's best if you kill something that you get the reward right away, right? And so that feels really good. And then, of course, story was, brand new. You jump into that.
The story was huge, right? Because, like you said, it's been 2012 since Borderlands 2, and I think 2014 since the pre-sequel, and Tales landed right in there. So it's been at least 5 years since we've got our hands on new Borderlands story, and we do this cool thing. I don't know if people pay attention, but between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, Borderlands 1 was 2009, Borderlands 2 2012, 3 years real time, 3 years game time. We've done the same thing again. So 7 years real time, 7 years game time. So Borderlands 3 is, like you said, it's set 7 years after. So some of our characters have grown up. If you've really watched some of the videos, you've seen Tiny Tina in the videos. Not so Tiny Tina anymore, right? She's grown up. But it's that she's a really great example, speaking to some of the things we have to consider and think through. That Tina is in the game is very important. We understand that fans really you like Tina? Tina?
I'm obligated to as a Tina.
I think you are, yeah, right. In fact, a great anecdote, we talked about this before. In 2012, you and I sat on the Borderlands 2 press tour together, and I got to introduce you to Tiny Tina.
Yeah.
And I still remember that moment because I think I made Tina jokes for an hour, and it was really terrible.
Oh yeah, they don't get boring.
But we feel this strong obligation to be sure that we understand what our fans love and who our fans love. And we want to be sure that we treat all the characters with care. That, you know, even though sometimes, you know, you have to beat up and you have to put your characters at risk and you really have to be sure that they grow and they have challenges to face, we want to be sure that we use them well and we treat them well and that they sound the same, they look the same, and they grow up in ways that you would expect. But the story, coming back to it, Borderlands is this massive universe, and I think to me one of the most exciting things in Borderlands 3 is for the first time we've always implied this great vast universe. In fact, spoilers from Borderlands 2, I think 7 years is long enough, right?
Statute of limitations.
If you got to the very end of Borderlands 2, one of the last things you see is we have this vault key, right? And Claptrap holds it up and puts up this conical shaped, you know, artifact. And it charges up and this map comes out that shows vault symbols not just on Pandora but all across the universe. Now, we kind of tease and play with that a little bit in the pre-sequel and hint at it a little bit in Tales, but for the first time ever, you are going to get to earn your way off of Pandora. You're going to get to grab a spaceship called the Sanctuary 3. We don't talk about Sanctuary 2. Sanctuary 3, and you get to fly off Pandora, and you get to go to those other planets and see, you know, how the Iridian has spread the vaults across the universe and dig into what's going on with that. To me, that just opens up a huge world of storytelling and storytelling potential. This game is broader and bigger and more ambitious than any Borderlands we ever have, and there is so much story to dig into.
Yeah, and even mechanically, you know, we've talked a lot about this game, so apologies for bringing you guys into it, but midway through. But when we've talked about it previously, you guys mentioned that it's also all about kind of getting back into the action and emphasizing the action. So it's a lot about like the new sliding mechanic and you know, a ground pound, and how are those kind of contributing to the gameplay?
Yeah, so the one of the things is funny. We talked about the gun mode switch, right? It sounds like, okay, well that's a good thing, and hopefully everybody thinks that's a good thing. But even internally,
that's great.
We didn't know that was the right thing. There were people who were like, no, just make those other guns. Don't have a gun mode switch. Just, you know, that'll give us even more variety of guns. So, you know, it's really interesting on a team like that where you decide, like, it's like, okay, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to put this gun mode switch in. But even that was a little bit controversial. Sliding wasn't always a shoo-in, right? That was one of those things like, okay, so why are we going to add sliding? Like, what is the gameplay benefit? Like, I'm sitting there like, what is the gameplay benefit? Why are we going to add sliding? And somebody just, you know, basically knocks me in the head and says, because it's fun.
It's fun, yeah.
Right? And that is the reason that we wanted to add it. It was fun, it added movement, and, you know, eventually we took it and we made it work, but it's that leap of faith that you have to have. And I think that's one of the best parts about development is that teamwork on like, okay, let's do something really cool there.
Yeah, and the trailers have really shown how, I mean, obviously the trailers are more choreographed, like the cinematic aspects of them are more choreographed, but it really does emphasize that verticality. You can mantle, you can jump around and hop onto Moses' Iron Bear and use her gunner too. Like, there's a lot of that movement that really shines through.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I think we had a little clip of it in the trailer there, and it's certainly in the E3 trailer out, but there's an ability, an augment you can take for Moses' tree called Daka Bear. And it's cool. We actually do it. Like, Iron Bear comes out, Moses doing whatever she's doing to like cause me on the battlefield, and another co-op player can literally jump up on the back of Iron Bear and mount it as a turret, and so you can co-op together in that way. So that's just one of the many little things hidden around like that the character design team put in for co-op play. So cool.
I may have freeze-framed a couple times on that gameplay, and I may have looked at Moses' skill tree and noticed that there's an ability that you can choose to activate that lets it essentially function like an AI companion, like after she jumps out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can, that will stick around for a little while. So, you know, basically it's when you're getting out, when the timer's expired, it'll stick around for a little while. And people who are really creative might put 2 and 2 together and realize that if it sticks around for a little while and they have the turret on the back,
It can cause some damage.
They can use their own Iron Bear as a turret.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So, you know, this is a looter, shooter, schluter. Are we going to coin that one? It's a schluter genre of a game. And it's really exploded in popularity over the last few years, but you guys are the ones who've like really owned it, popularized it, originated it. Have you gotten any takeaways from some of the other examples that have come out since?
I feel like I'm just capitalizing. I'm talking so much. I want to let Kayla jump in here. Anything like?
I mean, we play a lot of games at Gearbox. One of the things we're talking about, someone was asking us, like, are you here just for man, I've loved watching all the panels. It's really cool to see what creativity comes out of this. And I love to love things. I love to love games, and I love to love the gaming industry and all that. So we've certainly played all the others. I think one of the things that we really looked at, and Paul can even speak to this in more detail, is Borderlands has always had this huge variety in gunplay for us. But our guns, I think we always prioritize variety over just really, really super tight shooter performance. One of the cool things that happened in Borderlands 3 is we actually built that gun system, again, from the ground up, those billion guns, and emphasized things on just like tightness of control. I've always been a sniper in Borderlands before. You can be a good elemental Maliwan, and that's all I want. In this game, I find myself, grabbing submachine guns and hip firing and running around and swapping modes and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Just, understanding that the bar for shooters now, just as not even just shooter looters, but shooters in general, is a lot higher for the precision and tightness of gun firing. And our gun team has done a tremendously good job, I think, of doing that. We heard a lot of really positive feedback at the reveal event. I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on it soon, because I think it feels like a brand new Borderlands without losing the things that we loved from the previous Borderlands.
Right. There was a time early on in development where somebody had come to me and, again, ideas are ideas. And they'd said, hey, what do you think about these, hubs and having, games as a service and all these other things? Those aren't bad things. But it was not right to put this hub into Borderlands for me. I want people to be able to get into the action right away. To, as much as a menu isn't very sexy, being able to just jump into it with your friends, that was from the very beginning our goal, which is why we added level sync and we added the instance loot and things like that. We want people to be able to get into the game right away. And so a hub and all those things, it just didn't feel very true to us. And I think it was the right call to say no to that. I hope you guys agree that that's not where we wanted to go.
Keeping it Borderlands style.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the Schluter, we've got the shooting part of it, but also we should talk about the loot, because not only can you kill stuff to get awesome loot, but a tremendous amount of effort was put into the presentation of the chests.
Yeah.
Our art team went crazy, and per Paul Sage, the red chest had to be the coolest ever in any title, so we put a lot of work into making those look really awesome, and in the way that they move and animate, the effects that come out of them. They still have to get the loot fast, because we know that's what y'all want. But each manufacturer has a set of chests that's truly unique to the style and aesthetic of that manufacturer. So you'll see all of those things around the levels. I think in the Promethea level, we saw a lot of the Maliwan chests.
Right. They almost look like drones,
yeah,
right?
like spaceships almost. And the COV ones are a lot more junky and handmade looking. And in our other environments, we talked about Jacobs a little bit in the manner you might see some of those loot chests looking very teak wood and fancy. So give mad props to the art team and Sage for making sure that those look real good too.
Yeah, there's a lot of that you translate just visually, if it's like rarity levels, or as you were saying, like the different manufacturers, and it's kind of helpful as like little reading cues for people playing. Right. Yeah. And like the part of the big Schluter, Borderlands 3 Schluter experience is playing with people, and we were just mentioning like level syncing and loot sharing and some of those new additions to the series. And even just Mose herself feels like a character that was built specifically to emphasize that cooperative experience. It's always been the heart of Borderlands, that you play with people. What else have you guys like looked at to try to like retain that experience or bring that experience out more?
I think, again, we talked about cooperation. We talked about a little bit of those things. We haven't even like broached any of the other things about cooperation, like our matchmaking system is really robust. We spent a lot of time working on our matchmaking system. But again, I mentioned just briefly that we had the thing where we do a soft introduction. We have vending machines, and of course we have vending machines, right? But one of the things about this is now you can sell...
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Surprise.
You can sell an item in your vending machine, and then you can be offline, and then when you come back, that item could appear in one of your friends' vending machines. And we can do that now because we have the loot syncing and things like that. If you go to a map, like just a different place in the world, we'll show you which one of your friends might be in that map if they're online at the same time. So there's just, again, there's lots of little things to incentivize that cooperation, just because, hey, it's great solo, but it's also really fun. I think it really shines when you're playing with other people.
Yeah, I believe we talked about that idea that your loot can show up in your friend's game. There are like missions specifically geared towards pushing you in that direction as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the cool thing, like if you don't have the automatic loot that you sell and shows up there, you're like, so you find a really cool legendary drop somewhere and like, I've already got one of these, I want my friend to have it. We actually implemented in-game email where you can email items to your friends, whether they're online or offline, or your enemies. I mean, if you want to send your best legendary weapon to your enemy too, that's great too, it's up to you. But I love that. We've got email, we've got a way to change it, and we use that a lot to do that back and forth, so that's cool. Right.
And our players might even see emails from weapon manufacturers.
That's right, that's right. I mean, once we have an email system, right, why not exploit it?
I think that's our frequent fire program.
Oh.
Why not?
Good, y'all.
Love the jokes back and forth. But if you do want like the classic experience too, in terms of loot sharing and level syncing, that's something that you can turn off in case you want to, as you guys described it to me, like ninja loot your friends while you're playing, if that's your thing.
Yeah, that's leaving classic mode was really important. There are people who like to, the old twink their friends, which is, they can be higher level and they can take their friends and level them up really quickly. And some people like going after loot because I think one of the things that Randy was telling me one time was there was a guy who came up to me and says, hey, at least I know if somebody gives me a weapon, I want to keep playing with that person. So it's one of the benefits of keeping a system like that is there are people who like those trust mechanics in games that really want to just know, hey, this is the person I want to keep playing with, when they are made up and they're strangers at the first. So, yeah.
The more options, the better, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to say the word Schluter. Because we're still on that topic. Is it grating yet?
All
Do we
together
hate it?
now. Schluter.
So yet another aspect of the Schluter experience is the loot. We talked about it a little bit already, but I wanted to dive more into it because $1 billion really does sound like a made-up number, but it's not.
No.
It is, okay, it is a made-up number because I don't really want to do the math. I will say $1 billion was our safe number, and it is well over $1 billion.
I mean, we've had a QA guy counting, one gun at a time since the beginning of the project, and he's still going.
He's still doing it, yeah. Just a poor guy, like test every gun.
Lose count at 20 million, have to start all over again.
Yeah,
it's
like,
the worst.
crap!
Right.
You said 7, like 12, 13.
And it's funny because numbers are one thing, but we really want guns. Not every gun can feel different from every other gun, but we really wanted to highlight: can these guns, as much as possible, vary in gameplay from gun to gun? Where if you pick up a new gun, you're like, holy shit, I haven't seen anything like that before. That's really cool. I didn't know they had this. Because the joy of exploration is surprise, right? And seeing something that you didn't expect. That's the thing that brings me back to games a lot.
So how did you pull off $1 billion plus guns?
Bribery. Again, it's we look at the parts. We talked about how we have to mix and match each part. There's a stat that goes with each part. Then there's the gameplay mechanics that we wanted to, put into the manufacturers this time, like the pew.
Oh yeah, the ricochet. Oh, sorry.
Mess it up.
Only time. So we have the ricochet mechanics. We have the bullet magnetism for the Atlas, and then we have things like the Hyperion with the shields there. And the shields have their own background as to why they're on Hyperion. But all of those things lead up to that, and that's just the baseline guns. The oh boy, do I tell this story? Oh
yes.
My gosh, there's a
Go on.
There's a gun. Okay, hopefully it's an adult audience. But there's a gun. There's a mission very early in the game where you have to shoot a guy in his butt as part of a bonus, and of course I believe the gun's name is the butt plug. Did you get from that? So. Hi, Mom. Yeah. So it's just that kind of silliness and fun, like those conversations around the office, And I think also just as stupidly was talking about what the critical text is that goes up when you actually do achieve that. And I think it's like starfish, brown-eyed, and buttholed, and I can't remember what else. So yeah, it's just a joy to create guns like that and have people have a good time. So
back to you, Tina.
Yeah, moving on.
There are knock-on effects to those butt shooting experiences, though. We had to argue with finance for more expensive statues to be sculpted because we couldn't just do a bust. Paul Sage wanted one shot in the butt. So.
Yeah,
You
that's
see,
true.
in game development, it's all about the details.
That's right.
It is all about the details, and we have there's a great gun team back there with the Jet and Jimmy and those guys that and they've been working on the legendaries, like all the unique guns. People have seen Mouthpiece's gun, the one that fires that, but I think I don't know for sure, so maybe not, but I'm pretty sure we have way more legendaries and uniques than we've ever had in any other Borderlands.
There's a bunch of them.
There are a lot.
And I imagine adding legs to guns helps with the variety there. That's really what got you to the billion plus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's so many guns with legs. It's crazy. We've
Yeah.
not even seen all of them yet. So cool.
But like mechanically, the way that you guys constructed that was basically like, as you're describing it, it's like exponential math. You're just making combinations of these things, and there's a lot of visual elements too.
Absolutely. All of those different parts and pieces are all hand sculpted. The different shaders that indicate rarity are all done by our gun team and all picked out personally by Jimmy and Duke and Jet and the team. Those all started from concept up. So Kevin Duke is the main concept artist on the guns team. His brain somehow is able to figure out how to do all of that stuff where you start out with like a weapon base and you can make all of these parts that look good and work together. And they take a lot of effort to make sure that whenever a gun rolls, it will only roll parts that look good together. So the guns will look as good as they feel. They will look very different in their silhouettes. Each manufacturer just absolutely something crazy and cool. And whether or not you're using a pistol or an SMG, it should feel really awesome and different for each manufacturer. Once you start playing for a while, you can actually just look at one and know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And that's really cool, especially if you're like me. I am really, really picky about which guns that I choose that fit my play style, so I will definitely always pick up a legendary COV pistol, like always.
And the legendaries and the higher rarity guns, they also look like they're legendaries. and higher
Absolutely,
rarity.
they'll be shinier, they'll have a cooler shader on them, and even when you apply
Yeah.
the skin will look better on a legendary weapon than it will look on a common. It might look a little bit beat up on the common, you slap that on a legendary, and it's going to be pristine.
Yeah. And effectively, because of the gun firing modes too, that kind of expands the range of weaponry even further from that point.
Yeah, we didn't even count that in the billion. It's like a whole nother thing.
Right.
Yeah, you have a whole gun team that works on sort of the randomization engine that fits into it.
For years, yeah. They worked really hard on this, and I think it's going to show really strongly.
So that also speaks to just kind of the modern capabilities. The last time that we visited in Borderlands 2 was on last generation consoles. So now that we're on modern technology, like what's come out of that you've been able to do with Borderlands 3?
It's so.
Don't tell me there's a butt shooting mission related to this story.
No, but yeah, okay.
Thanks to the power of the new generation, we can shoot butts.
It's interesting because we talk about that, and we actually did have an engine switch in the project, and we switched over to Unreal Engine, and it's got a lot of great technology. But when you look at Borderlands, we hear the word cell shaded a lot. The game's not cell shaded. Everything is hand inked, and that process actually takes much longer than just a normal game for the art, because they have to go in and they have to make it look like it's got that comic book style to it. So when you have something like PBR, which is I think physical based rendering, right? And it gives you materials, so it gives you reads on things like it's aluminum or it's wood or something like that. But that's how the lighting plays off. So we actually have to take something like that and decide, how does that work with our art style? And I think they did a terrific job. And I say that because it wasn't me, and there's so much math involved in things like that. Like
It was all Kayla.
How that works, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's one of those things where you get new technology and everybody's really excited. And for us, it's a real challenge. Like, how does that work? How are we going to get that fit in? But it also gives our game that distinctive style, and there's no way in hell I would get away from that style. I love that style.
Yeah, last time we chatted about this, you guys mentioned that you have higher fidelity models, that even just like the randomization in terms of, because it's the same sort of randomization engine for the gun as it is for the enemy types too. So even on different planets, the enemies are supposed to sort of mirror that design.
So the different planets and biomes will have all of their own enemies, and within those subsets of enemies, you'll actually see a lot more variety than in any other Borderlands title, using a similar gestalt system to the guns where those parts can kind of interchange and swap out. So everything from like skin tone on a psycho to the mask to patterns on their clothing, you'll all recognize them as the iconic psychos and the bandits, but you'll be able to not feel like you're shooting the same one over and over and over again. And that even applies to the big dinosaurs on Eden 6, the Thorians, where you can get different heads and tails on them that create that different visual, which is also associated with a type of gameplay. So while you're playing, when you see a little one or a big one with horns, you should be able to get an idea of how it's going to attack you just from the visuals. And it just makes all of the worlds feel a lot more lush and immersive when there's that much variety.
Yeah, I love what the art team did there because I think as a team, we're very cognizant of the fact that you guys play for ridiculous amounts of hours in Borderlands, and thank you for that. But we all know that after a certain amount of time, there's always some fatigue that can set in. So finding ways visually to keep the game fresh and exciting, even when you're going back and you're playing, True Vault Hunter mode or whatever, or you're playing late game, you're playing through as another character, or playing with a different set of friends, like that's real in this game. And I think we looked for all of the nooks and crannies we could there to add and expand the visual fidelity of the game.
Yeah, they look real good.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss not to mention that there's a day-night cycle now.
Yes?
There's a day-night cycle. One of the fun things about the day-night cycle, and I think Ryan Smith and the tech art team had a lot to do with this, and Triss with the skyboxes, right?
Oh my
Absolutely. Triss deserves a shout out.
Yeah, so those guys worked their butts off to get not a day-night cycle on one planet, but different day-night cycles and different lighting for other planets to be like, okay, this is what the lighting would look like on these planets, right? And it seems like a minor detail, but it's really important to make the world feel alien.
That's correct, yeah.
Adds to the ambiance. Is there like a pitch black planet where it's just light out for 2 hours once a month or whatever that was?
But I don't know if I'm hitting.
Yeah, there isn't, because we want to make sure you can see what you're shooting at. But I will say that
Night vision
Promethea
goggles.
is almost always in a state of twilight. So it's in a state of dusk for the most part.
But it has a lot of neon lights to make up for it, right? It's the city planet, right, we saw in the real event. So it's got a lot of neon billboards and bulletin boards and advertisement. And then Maliwan is doing Maliwan things there. So, of course, they're very stylish in everything they do.
You guys described it to me as effort meets tech, and that felt like such a good, succinct way of describing why Borderlands 3 looks as gorgeous as it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious about any behind-the-scenes dev stories that you guys might have. Was there anything in your playtesting sessions as you guys were kind of exploring what Borderlands 3 looks like, feels like? Any stories where you've discovered like unintended features? I know that happens often in development.
You first.
Sure. So one of the great pieces of feedback that we got from the art director, Scott Kester, after looking at the spaceship map set for Sanctuary, was that it just didn't quite feel like home enough. So we went through a couple of iterations of that art set just to try to get it right. And when we came out with the one that eventually we liked, it still didn't feel quite like home. So he looked at it and he said, rub some funk on it. Which,
Quote.
yeah, actual quote, which in Kester speak means that it's got to look a little bit messy and a little bit more lived in. So the level art team just started pulling stuff from other maps, just random rugs and adding all these little flavor pieces. And then we got Adam Ybarra from Concept to do some paint overs and make all of the decals and stuff that help you get around the ship. And after that piece of feedback, it really started to look like a home hub map that people lived in, because that was the most important part for Sanctuary, is it should feel like you live there. And that was really cool to see it go from this sort of sterile environment to something that actually felt like a player could feel at home in.
It's got like beat up couches and like
String
stains.
lighting.
Oh yeah. It's got my favorite joke in the game. Like, and it didn't even come from the writing team, so I could couple with the art team on there. Like, there are these pipes that run through the ship that you see, and one of them is coolant, and the one right below it is heatant.
It's a thing if you want to make it a thing.
It's important to keep those labeled.
And you can even like customize your quarters too on Sanctuary 3.
Yeah. I think you're talking about stories. I'll tell this one on Josh Atkins. He's a great guy, works at 2K. But he very seriously pulled me aside one day, and it was kind of early in development. And Mose, believe it or not, was our first character that we worked on. And here's this big mech, and like in any development cycle, not everything's roses, right? But we finally get Mose into a good place, and it's looking good. And everybody's like, okay, I think we have something here. And Josh pulls me aside and says, okay, so we love Mose, but how in the hell are you going to top this? right? Like you've dug yourself a hole. I'm like, the hell, man? No, we're gonna have a great Siren character. We have our Beastmaster character, that we'll talk about more in August, of this year, and Zane's one of those characters that I just love. Like Zane is a sleeper hit to me because he's the mix and match. He can throw out the shield, he can do the clone, he can do his sentry, or and all of that. Like I think all of the characters really turned out, great. I mean, I'm just kind of sound self-serving, but it's actually one of my favorite parts of the game is how much time we spent with them and took care on those characters.
For me, it's just the great development story is that moment where we desperately want to ship the game because we want to play the game, right? And it happens so late in development for so long. The art's not in, it's untextured, there are bugs, the editor's crashing, everything's going wrong. And there was a moment for me about 3 months ago where I was going and working through a bug one week, I think getting ready for the reveal event. And it was a bug in the early game, and it required me to load up the game and start playing and get that. And it was really early game. I think it was when Claptrap first meets you and something like that. And I played that, and this is kind of feeling fun. 3 hours later, I closed the bug and moved to the next one. I'm like, man, I should fix more bugs. We've got to get this done. But to me, it's that great moment when that game goes from just being a work project to it now feels like a thing. It breathes like a thing. We hit it and we're there. And that's been the news around the office lately. Like we're like let's get it out. Like there was seriously a thread this week on our internal email of someone saying when is it a good time for me to start playing the game when we're not going to reset our profiles and I just want to play all the way through. And that's when we know that we've got the magic's back and the magic's happening. And that's so exciting for us as developers to feel that coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks super exciting, and we've really enjoyed it at IGN playing as well. But on that note, I wanted to ask, what Vault Hunter are you? Of the new crew.
My go-to is always Siren. I really like that you can play this particular Siren a lot of different ways. My personal build that I make for myself, I call the Leroy Jenkins build, because I just like to run in there and really get in, and using the phase slam ability sort of when you enter battle right away, and then all of Amara's abilities that allow you to get more damage for proximity is a great way to play, and I've been tweaking that build. When I really want to do some wacky stuff and experiment, though, I do play as Zane.
Oh yeah, in fact, I'll go ahead and say Zane is mine right now. I think that's the Vault Hunter I'm going to start with. So Zane, you talked a little bit earlier. Zane has some really cool action skills. He can do a drone, he can do a shield, he can do he can do a digiclone and then swap places with it. So there's a lot of cool positional element. But Zane has this neat idea that he can take of all the different permutations of his action skill, you can actually cannibalize your grenade slot to have another action skill button. So he can actually run two completely separate action skills at the same time. What's cool about that is you have to give up grenades, but I found a trick. TDR weapons in this game are so amazing. They're the guns with legs. We still have the TDR that go out and explode, and there's even more variety to how they explode. So a lot of TDR weapons to me present like grenades. So I found when I run Zane, I can just run with a TDR weapon or two. I can have all the crazy fun of guns with legs, and I don't really feel that I've completely given up that grenade slot. There's still a lot of other grenades that do things above and beyond what TDR do, so there's a cool game there. But Zane is this really cool kind of, I just want to tweak it. I don't want to twiddle with him for a little bit and find out, what's the right combination of stuff that just does insane stuff on the battlefield.
Yeah. Paul?
Which one of your kids,
Yeah,
Paul?
it's Sophie's choice, right? So this is a tough one for me. It's who I'm playing at the time, usually, for me, and mostly because I think I'm going through with Mose right now because we're at the show. But there's things I'm really liking about the way Mose plays right now. So I'll say Mose for now, and ask me again in a month, and I'll tell you a different character.
We'll revisit.
Yeah.
Well, noticeably absent is Flack, which is not to say by any means not a favorite of the group, but definitely I've noticed a favorite of the community. Mm-hmm. So is there anything that we can give to the community just to tide us over until the next reveal?
Yes, so, and probably somebody from PR will come slap me, but just for everybody here. And people have had this one question about Flack that I want to put to rest. It's like, can you command your pets? Can you tell your pets to go attack this one thing? Yes. It is not like Death Trap in that way. It's not just a summon. So
it's a true pet class.
Yeah, your pets stay with you all the time, and you can tell them to go attack. But we'll get more into it, and I'm probably in trouble now.
But I think we have one more thing that we're going to talk about Flack. And this is kind of an exclusive to this panel at E3. You guys are hearing it first. So a big announcement with Flack the Beastmaster, and that's the voice actor.
Oh, right.
We have not yet heard Flack speak anywhere in a trailer or a demo, and today we want to let you guys know Flack is being voiced by a really amazing voice actor named Sung-Won Cho, who you might know as ProZD from YouTube.
Good news?
Really amazing. I can't wait for you to hear Flack.
Absolutely. Well, it wouldn't be a Gearbox panel without a little bit of news. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Don't forget September 13th. Shut up and take my iridium, am I right?
That's right.
Friday the 13th. There you go.
Well, thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful E3.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's roll that trailer one more time.
There are 6 sirens in the universe. I used to be one of them. My name is Lilith, and I need you. The Vault is a psycho cult. 10 billion followers demand we join or die. We've got another proposal for them.